And now, coming soon to video cassette.
It is, at this point, still Putter Putman playing a nice, easy race, out in front, no problems all the way. And we got John Crocker down with a prop stop, so he did have a problem. Flag comes out. John Putter Putman. All right.
49 Mayday coming in.
With the Mayday, say your number.
Coming in 1-4.
Look, very hot. S-turn it, S-turn it. Pull out an S-turn. The Mayday, say your number.
49.
49. 49, Roger.
And you've got to take it. When I say ground loop, do it.
And Bob Yancey took the R2800 out of his... Uh-oh, we've got David Price. Looks like that he is into a problem there, setting down very hot. Very hot. Got that tail down. Trying to get on those brakes, and we're going to have a runoff here, I'm afraid.
9's on the deck, runway 14, about 3,000 foot remaining.
About 1,000 feet left, and I'm going to call you ground loop as you go off the end.
And come on, Dave, get that thing around in a ground loop.
Ground loop now, put in full rudder and hard brake, all the way.
Get it around in a ground loop, stay down, stay down, stay down.
Welcome to SKYFIRE and the 25th anniversary of the National Championship Reno Air Races. I'm Jim Mitchell, and have we got a show for you.
This is Sky Fury, featuring the best of the SKYFIRE series. Sit back now and get set to enjoy the best aviation performers in the world.
1988 was the year of racing Maydays in Reno, and SKYFIRE takes you there for every action-packed minute as pilots bring their planes down the hard way. You'll see Joanne Osterud perform, but this year her Stevens Acro has been replaced by a new airplane called the Hyperbite. We'll see what difference that makes as Joanne once again races Scott Hammock in his full-blown jet dragster. Jim Franklin and company put in a superb performance, with Johnny "Oh Yeah" Kasian doing what nobody dares, walking the aerobatic wing through the most outrageous aerobatics you'll ever see. And this year, we put a camera on the wing so you can ride up there with Johnny, but of course from the safety of your living room. If you visit Reno early in September, it's sure not hard to tell that air race time is just around the corner. Where else can you find a parade of aircraft led by a beautiful P-51 Mustang being pulled through a residential neighborhood at 6 o'clock in the morning? While the actual races occur over a 4-day period, the celebration starts a full week in advance, so these airplanes are put on static display. Then it's back to more familiar surroundings at Reno Cannon International Airport. This year, the planes were so fast, many of the pilots who come to Reno to race in the slower bronze race were knocked out of the competition early by faster airplanes. Alan Preston of Dallas, Texas was there once again with his Dago Red Unlimited Racer. I was over on the foothills near the guide pylon on a Thursday afternoon when Alan went right over the top of us. With a 1,000mm lens on the camera, I couldn't follow him very far, but I'll play it for you anyway, so you can hear what it sounds like to have a full-blown racer go 30 feet over the top of your head. If you've never been to Reno, I've got to tell you, there's no sound quite like these unlimited racing engines going full out. You'd think those engines would be loud as blazes when they start, but in fact, many are not. From SKYFIRE's Hard Road to Hamilton, listen to 1987 Unlimited Gold winner Bill Tiger DeStefani as he starts the engine. Now, here's an unusual look at how a pilot gets ready to race. From our in-flight camera mounted inside the Strega airplane, we see Bill DeStefani getting on his flight suit. The fabric is not only fireproof, but Tiger has a cooling system that circulates coolant throughout the suit while he's flying. He's getting ready to make his qualifying run that will tell the field just how fast the airplane's flying. Listen as Tiger and a member of his crew exchange last-minute instructions before starting the engine.
We'll give her a ride.
Okay, have fun. Yeah, give it a good ride. And you remember, they don't have to prove anything to us. There you go.
Tiger taxis out the plane to the run-up area to bring the engine up to temperature before takeoff. Then it's off to make his run. He was just starting to turn it up on the course when things started to come apart, Tiger explains.
Well, at first I couldn't really believe, that it blew up.
Yeah.
It's a realization that it's kind of hard to sink in. But then after, it is serious. And, I'm pulling up and, of course, looking for that runway, which was right there. And then things started to get worse, and they got worse by the second. It just steadily got more smoke, more oil, more everything.
And you had no power.
No power, and then the blades were going flat, and it was really dragging me down. And about halfway through, I'm thinking, and I was way up on the step, and I'm thinking, I don't know if I'm going to make it.
As he sets up for his Mayday landing, smoke begins to fill the cockpit. The engine is really running rough, and the end of that runway isn't starting to look very sure. He barely makes the numbers as the engine gives out. Watch how fast the prop comes to a stop. Tiger opens the canopy as that red-hot engine sizzles in the nose of that airplane. It could burst into flame at any moment. Tiger makes ready his escape as the crash fire rescue trucks roll to his aid. Now, there's an old saying that the captain always goes down with the ship. But according to Tiger, the guy who said that sure as heck wasn't from Bakersfield. Well, it was over for Strega. But there was still plenty of action out on the course as the pilots continued to qualify. '86 and 1987 AT6 gold winner, Fast Eddie Van Fossen from Bakersfield, was back at it in his North American SNJ4 that he calls Miss TNT. As we watched on Wednesday, Eddie set a new qualifying speed record of better than 232 miles per hour. Word in the pits was if you were going to beat Eddie, the only way to do it was let all the air out of his tires so he couldn't take off. From Alto, New Mexico, Jimmy Franklin and Elliott Cross perform in the black and silver Wacos. And to really get things going, here's one of Reno's favorite engine announcers, Johnny Kasian.
At either end of the runway sits Jimmy Franklin at the far right-hand side in the Cinema 600. At the far left-hand side, Elliott Cross with the smoke on in the 450 Mystery Ship, rolling towards each other, taking off, ladies and gentlemen, on the same runway, aimed right at each other, the dueling Wacos. At Show Center, oh yeah! They cross over, and now into the sky goes Elliott Cross with a 4-point roll. Out to the far right-hand side, Jimmy Franklin with some speed at the left-hand side. Inside snap roll 1, and now 2, now 3. Straightening it out, looking for the speeds to come through. 200 miles an hour down to 180, 190, 200, 210. As he comes right down to the bottom, pulls it vertically into the sky. Holding it in the inverted position, ladies and gentlemen, from the left, Elliott Cross. The outside loop from the ground, down to within 5 feet of the ground with that tail, holding it down and holding it all the way the length of the picture window of the air show. He starts pushing negative, and now with 2 points to the upright position. Jimmy Franklin with 200 miles an hour at the far right-hand side, pulls the Cinema 600 back into the sky, executes the snap roll, reverses it, Longevok, oh yeah! Over the top now. And now the flat inverted spin, a maneuver that's carried many pilots and their planes all the way to the ground. The flat inverted spin, Cinema 600 falling out of the sky now with Jimmy Franklin at the controls. Time to get out of that one, Jimmy. Oh yeah. He leaves his signature in the skies over Reno, Nevada. From the right-hand side comes Elliott Cross, down with the 450 mystery ship, pulling the stick back in his lap, goes vertically into the sky. Snap roll, and at the top, doing that bunt maneuver, shoving the stick forward. All the forces trying to shove him out of the sky, out of the cockpit, as he does a quarter roll on the way down, and out to the right-hand side. Jimmy Franklin grabbing some sky at the far left-hand side. Elliott Cross at the right-hand side, coming right towards each other. The dogfight has commenced, peppering away at each other. And oh yeah, that's close. They crossed over. And now tied a knot in the smoke. Elliott Cross getting the advantage by wheeling it around and firing up at Jim. But Jim's got altitude. Altitude exchanges for airspeed. Down below him now. Elliott Cross stalling it over the top. Jimmy Franklin doing a half a roll and coming out. Elliott Cross read his book. He's right on his tail. He's got him peppering away at him. And Jimmy Franklin, knowing he's in trouble, up to the top now. Pulls it hard over the top. Elliott Cross cuts that circle in half. Follows him down. And hey, Jimmy Franklin, Elliott Cross read your book, boy. He's on your tail as he rolls it around. And Jimmy Franklin in the sky trying to shake Elliott off of his tail. And Elliott right on him. Oh, yeah. Over the top comes Jimmy Franklin. Elliott Cross peppering away at him. Jimmy in trouble. He's got to do something different, something extremely different. He stalls it. Elliott goes right past him. Jimmy comes over the top. Elliott's still flying. Jimmy straightens it out. Elliott reads it and comes down on his tail. Jimmy doing a hard bank to the right, now a hard bank to the left, and a snap roll. And indeed, he shook Elliott off. Now the rolls have exchanged, and Jimmy is the pursuer. Elliott, you're in trouble! And Jimmy right on his tail.
Let's watch now as the boys from the Big Sky country put on a real power performance. Listen to the engines as the planes flare over the main active runway. The race was won by John Putman in Georgia May at a speed of 414 miles per hour. He was followed by Alan Preston and Bill Rhineschild in Risky Business. But meanwhile, high overhead, the Golden Knights are getting ready to make their jump. The jump master kneels down and drops flag markers to determine the wind direction. And they're off. The Golden Knights are the elite of the Army's airborne soldiers. They have performed over 5,400 jumps since their inception in 1959. From their ranks have come 15 world champions, 72 national champions, and 10 national championships. They truly are impressive. Let's watch.
Now I'd like to introduce you to a bundle of dynamite in a small package. Miss Joanne Osterud in the Hyper Pipe.
Joanne now setting up for a maneuver she calls the candy cane with a wing air show shotgun.
An air show routine is basically quite simple, but the whole point is to have it pleasing to the audience. It's like freestyle figure skating. None of the maneuvers in themselves, one by one, are all that. Some of them are difficult, but it's how you put them together.
Petite Joanne Osterud has not always used the hyperbipe to perform her aerobatics. In years past, we've filmed her in the Stevens Acro. While some of this is trick photography, it's no illusion that Joanne really knows how to ring out an airplane.
If someone's never done it, they might get a little queasy, but it's just like anything you do for the first time. Your brain hasn't felt those motions. It's like jumping on a trampoline for the first time. The first time you do it, you can't keep your feet under you. After you've done it a few times, pretty soon you're getting pretty good. Same thing with acrobatics. The person might be a little uneasy the first, but if it's done right, they shouldn't be scared at all.
Now here's a different angle. With a camera mounted on the nose of the airplane, watch Joanne's hair fly through the air as she performs her aerobatics.
Very rarely do I look in the cockpit. I have my sequence written on the panel to kind of keep me on track as to what the next maneuver is, because you're concentrating so hard on what maneuver you're doing now, and particularly the wind and the positioning of the audience, so that you keep your routine right in front of everybody and don't end off somewhere in the next state while you're finishing up your maneuvers.
It's not hard to see why Joanne is such a favorite with the Reno audience. As she sets up for her next vertical maneuver, listen to the sound of the engine bleeding off in the stall.
Now, every spring, historic Hamilton Field, north of San Francisco, stages the Wings of Victory Air Show. It's one of the greatest events you'll ever watch.
On the President's order, the bitter taste of war was returned to Japan. We fashioned a daring scheme to have the Hornet launch a force of bombers and strike at Tokyo from the sea.
I bet you didn't know that Hamilton Air Force Base was used as a staging area for Jimmy Doolittle and his band of raiders prior to being loaded onto the USS Hornet for their daring attack on Japan in 1942. Then there was Little Boy, the nuclear bomb released by the Enola Gay over Japan. It, too, stopped here at Hamilton Field. And remember when the United Nations was headquartered in San Francisco? All the arriving dignitaries from around the world came right here to Hamilton, where once the pride of the Air Force took to the skies. Now only deer and rabbits graze on the open marsh grass. When we first filmed here in May, little did these deer have any possible conception of what was about to descend onto this sleepy old field. They had more aircraft, different aircraft on display than you'll ever see again. And they weren't spotted out in the back 40 with 50 yards of barricades between you and the planes. These were all right there, close up, so you could see them and appreciate the design and beauty. And that's exactly what everybody did.
Aeroplanes weren't the only items of interest that had come to Hamilton. I'm here to tell you that these guys were very serious about their hardware. Because if you didn't know where you were and what this whole affair was all about, you'd think you were in a time warp. Now, I want to show you something funny. We staged this little routine with the fine officers of the Novato Police Department chasing these characters in their half-tracks. But when these guys turned around and came back out from behind the buildings, see if you can guess who wasn't part of the skit. For those of you not familiar with the laws of California, we call this Winnebago warfare. You can't believe the dirty look we got from the driver of that motorhome. Well, there were a lot of classic World War II fighters at Hamilton, but there was also plenty of afterburner action. Watch this fine demonstration by an F-16. This was a great show because unlike so many other military pilots who punch holes in the sky so far up you can't see them with the naked eye, this demonstration was right down on the deck where everyone could enjoy it. In contrast to the F-16, an old B-17 took to the skies to remind us of how far we've come in just 46 years. Hard Road to Hamilton was a wonderful filming experience because a very special team of Canadians made one of their rare appearances over San Francisco Bay. I speak of the Snowbirds in their Tudor trainers. Here's their grand performance. The Snowbirds come out of their big 9-plane loop. Watch as the two solo performers break the formation. Aha! Here's something you weren't expecting. A beautiful view from the cockpit inside the formation. We're looking straight forward at the flight leader. Out the side window is a stunning snowbird's eye view of the city by the bay, San Francisco. Little bit of turbulence. Ha! We just caught some bad air coming off Treasure Island and the Oakland Bay Bridge. Each year, the Snowbirds appear before 6 million spectators. They perform about 70 shows each season at 50 select North American locations. The pilots and their ground crews are all volunteers from the Canadian Armed Forces. Each team member serves a 2-year term, with half the team rotating out each year to bring in new team members. So you say you want to be a snowbird? Well, every November, the 431st Air Demonstration Squadron, which is the Snowbirds' official military designation, holds open competition to pilots from throughout the provinces. They come to Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, the winter home of the Canadian Snowbirds, there to try their skill in hopes of making this elite team of Airedales. Now, according to the FAA, this next maneuver is not exactly recommended for beginners.
Now here's something I bet you didn't know. Unlike other demonstration teams, the Snowbirds don't travel around with a big cargo plane full of luggage and spare engines and dancing girls. Oh no, everything they need they carry on their backs, so to say, traveling 2 men to a cockpit. Their baggage, tools, jockey shorts, and uniforms, or anything else they need either fit in the plane or they stay home.
Fabulous Canadian Snowbirds. Now, in case you're wondering why we call this program Hard Road to Hamilton, here's the answer.
As the Snowbirds taxied back to the ramp, the skies overhead began to darken as if serious weather were about to move in. Bob Hoover strolled up and said, "Morning, Jim, how are you?" I said, "Looks like it's going to rain, Bob." He replied, "Jim, I just talked to a fellow who knows this area well, and he assured me these clouds will burn off and the sun will be out in half an hour." Now, I do not exaggerate when I tell you that 4 minutes later, I couldn't find Bob because here's what happened to those clouds that were going to burn off. It rained. It blew. It poured like you were standing under a garden hose. People were huddled under anything they could find. Airplane wings did just mighty fine, thank you. Our cameras got wet. Our 1-inch broadcast recorders got soaked in. You still want to know why I call this Hard Road to Hamilton. The rain stalled the show for about 2 hours. That didn't help the attendance, which in turn didn't help the show's sponsors who had paid for all this to happen. Down in the pits, 2 great bodies of water had formed. One they called Lake Hamilton, and the other was known as the Straits of DeStefani. On the south shore of Lake Hamilton was D.D. Williams' Mustang Pegasus. Along the west shore was the Dreadnought and the Super Corsair. And on the east shore, there was a whole lot of east shore. That's where you'd find the Straits of DeStefani. That lucky tiger. He had great lakefront property. It extended all the way under his pretty red airplane canopy, about 14 inches up the side of your leg, if you cared to wade through it. Tom McCaffrey of the Strega crew was manning the bilge pumps when I caught up with him.
Is this part of the requirements of being the crew for Tiger?
Yeah, you have to know something about hydraulics as well as aircraft.
How has this water affected the racing, Tom?
I don't think it's going to affect it at all.
Don't think it will.
It's made our pit a little messy, but it's not going to affect the racing at all.
Maybe sell beachfront property?
We've talked about it. We're going to bring in some fake palm trees, and we've got swim fins and goggles for anybody who wants to swim.
Tom, thank you so much. Good luck this afternoon.
Thank you.
All right.
Now, when we're shooting on location, a lot of people ask about our fuzzy wind covers that protect the stereo microphones. I was shooting the Thunderbird Mustang when I heard someone off camera say, "What's that fuzzy thing that guy's got on the stick?"
There's a reason for fur on that microphone.
Yes, let
Come on over here and talk to us. Please, please come over here and talk to us.
Oh, I'll talk to you.
Is there a reason for Is there a reason for that fur on the microphone?
Well,
That's what he
actually
has.
there is. This is something we bagged in Louisiana, and we weren't really sure what it was, but
Kind of like a possum.
it makes good sound when you pet it there.
Yeah.
Larry pets it quite a bit.
A little sound fun with the microphone. Well, I want you to get ready because right now we're going to show you one of the all-time greats of aviation. There's never been another man quite like him in the air. He flew an airplane called the Super Chipmunk. This is the one and only Mr. Art Scholl.
Now here's the maneuver everyone's been waiting for. It's called the Lumpschlavek. Watch closely as Art Scholl literally throws his airplane across the sky, completely out of control. Let's watch that maneuver again from a different camera angle. Only this time, let's watch it at normal speed. Anyone care for a little airplane ride? Watching Art Scholl perform is sort of like watching a three-ring aerial circus. He's got colored smoke, firecrackers. What's next? Well, watch as he flies inverted only inches from the ground to snag a red ribbon off the runway with his vertical stabilizer. Here it comes! He's got it! Ladies and gentlemen, one of the greatest stunt pilots of our time, Mr. Art Scholl and the Super Chipmunk.
A fabulous performance from Mr. Art Scholl. SkyFIRE now takes you to Marine Corps Air Facility El Toro for some afterburner action with the F-14 Tomcat.
The F-14 Tomcat, top gun of the fleet and pride of the United States Navy, shown here in the carrier landing configuration. Gear is down and the arresting hook extended as the F-14 slow flies the field. There's a new Top Gun, a sleek jet fighter that's making its own record in the annals of naval aviation history. It's called the Hornet. The McDonnell Douglas F-18A Hornet has been demonstrated solo by the Navy at several public air shows around the country. The powerful capability of this fighter aircraft is nothing short of awesome. Here, Captain Wade of the Royal Canadian Air Force circles the field in a continuous stall at only 60 knots of forward speed. The demonstration you're watching almost defies description. This is not a Harrier. It is not a vertical takeoff aircraft. This is a straightforward, fast-flying F-18A supersonic attack jet serenading around the field at full thrust. This highly skilled pilot is mushing through the air on the hairy edge of disaster. One false move, even the slightest momentary loss of power, and the plane will instantly plummet into the ground.
Some real skill working there in the pilot's seat. Well, next, SkyFIRE takes you to an unlimited aircraft race in Reno for a photo finish. Now, in this race, two planes, a Mustang and a Navy Corsair, are battling it out for the lead. Race announcer Sandy Sanders picks up the action of the final lap.
Okay, on number 6, dropping it downhill now. Ted Kelly pulls in right behind him, and they're going to have a fight to the finish. And it's Yancey, as he's got that 2,800 round all the way up. As they come into number 7, right down on the deck. Almost got the front blade in the sagebrush out there. And it's Yancey. And I know that left hand has probably got cramps from going so far forward against the firewall. And they're going to be coming around pylon number 8 now. And it's going to be a race for the go. And here they come. With it Kelly up high. Then it's trying to make a run for it. And it's Yancey down low. It's going to be fast.
The Mustang beats out the Corsair for a great racing finish. Reno is the only place in the world where these classic World War II piston engine fighters line up and battle it out on a 9-mile oval course. From inside the cockpit of Howard Pardue's Bearcat, watch out in front as two other aircraft jockey for position. Let's listen in.
Howard Pardue has got it to the wall as he heads for the guide pylon. When he reaches pylon number 4, watch as Howard's airplane catches bad turbulence.
And we got Skip home on the move in Blind Man's Bluff as he went past and now is in second place and drawing a bead on that number 1 airplane. Will that big 3350 hang together? Remember, he's not even running on alcohol. Whoa, and there he goes, number 69, Georgia May. All right, now let's pick up these two airplanes here as they come by. It is Dean Cutchell and Skip Holman, Blind Man's Bluff, number 88. That's Short Wing Sea Fury. Okay, and it is number 69, Georgia May, as he blasts his way around. He is already almost on pylon number 4. And you can see the separation he's put on the rest of the planes in the pack. Guido Zaccoli in the Fiat G59. Now in the background, and it looks, man, oh man, is Blind Man's Bluff put the move on now. But I don't know if he can catch that airplane that's being flown by John Putman. Sounding good. That's Wally McDonnell in 106. Pardue starting to run the power up. Starting to run the power up on the Bearcat. Watch him as they come into this turn. Howard lays it over there and catches a little bit of that bad air.
The silver race concluded with John Putman in the all-silver number 69, Georgia May, taking the checkered flag to win. followed by Skip Holm in Blind Man's Bluff. And Howard Pardue from Breckenridge, Texas in the number 3 spot.
We'll have more exciting racing scenes later on. It was about this time that one of America's newest bombers flew in over the field. No, not the Stealth, but a mighty mean-looking machine, the Rockwell B-1B bomber. It's powered by 4 General Electric F-101 engines, delivering 30,000 pounds of forward thrust. The cockpit is staffed by a 4-man crew, and the plane weighs 477,000 pounds. The wingspan is 137 feet, and it stands 34 feet off the ground. The armament, conventional or nuclear weapons, and standoff missiles. A real hunting machine, this B-1B.
Now, from north of the border, in those black and gold airplanes, here are the Ray-Ban Gold. Nice job, guys.
Now, back in 1983, the Blue Angels were performing in the small A4F Skyhawk line attack jets. This aircraft was highly maneuverable, and the team of 83 was hot. Here's the Blue Angels in their A4s.
Now, as each pilot performs the rollout of his aircraft, watch how closely they bring each plane into line. One careless move and it's back to the barn for a new paint job. Precision on the ground as well as in the air. This is why the Blue Angels are recognized and admired as one of the best flight demonstration teams.
aerodynamic demonstration squadron. For the pilots fly the tie diamond formation while 10 performers solo. The maximum performance demonstrated.
The show is on as the Blue Angels roll down the main runway here at the Reno National Championship Air Races. Watch this next maneuver. See how incredibly close the pilot's wingtip comes to the asphalt at the bottom of his turn. You probably didn't see it, but two jets just passed each other only inches apart. Let's watch that again in slow motion. Here comes another high-speed pass. Watch for the second plane. Let's see that again from a different angle in slow motion. The Blue Angels are flying A-4 Skyhawk attack aircraft, just like the ones they fly off large aircraft carriers in faraway oceans all over the world. find a more blue sky than September in northern Nevada. The temperatures are mild, the winds are calm, perfect aerobatic conditions. The Blue Angels perform in air shows all over the country. If you ever get a chance to see them in person, it's one show you won't soon forget. Watch the precision of these two incoming aircraft. Here they are all together, the best flying demonstration team in the U.S. Navy. Now in a moment, you're going to see Scott Hammocks and his jet dragster. We mounted a camera on the dragster and got some incredible shots. Watch now as Joanne Osterud flies inverted in a race with Scott down the runway. He'll wait till she's even with the dragster before punching the button that fires that jet engine. Here they go. Scott Hammock caught the airplane on this pass, but there's always another day, Joanne.
Now here's a new act for Reno. Pilot Bill Warren and the Daring Damsels put on a stunning performance in a modified Stearman. What makes this act so unique is that two women, Connie Warren and Kathy Rivas, walk the wing simultaneously, a one-of-a-kind act. We asked Kathy Rivas what it's like to walk the Stearman wing.
Well, the first time was terrifying. Now it's just scary. The wind doesn't affect us out on the wing. It's when we go from 100 to 180 miles an hour, it's pretty windy anyway. It affects Bill's job, flying the airplane.
How do you coordinate the moves that you do?
We have receivers. We wear receivers, and he cues us when to wing walk, when to knee hang, that kind of thing. So it makes it easier for him to do it for us to do it in unison.
So we're flying at least 3 days a week, and for instance here at Reno we're flying 4 times, so even more. So we don't really train. That's our training during the summer.
We put the question to Bill Warren. How hard was it to get his wife Connie and Kathy Rivas to walk the wing?
If I could convince these ladies to go wing walking when they didn't want to, the next thing I would do is run for president. Maybe king.
It's Saturday morning, and the grandstands are filled to overflowing as people from all over the world have come to enjoy the show. As opening ceremonies begin, keep your eyes on this airplane. It won't do loops, and it's not too fast around the pylons, but it's got a very special cargo inside. Watch now as high overhead, the 4th Force Reconnaissance Company of the U.S. Marine Corps Reserve perform a 30-man static jump. Now, I'm told by those who know that parachuting is fun, but as I watch these guys hit the ground, you couldn't get me to jump. And now it's our pleasure to introduce you to one of the great pioneers in aviation, Mr. Robert A. Bob Hoover. Funny thing is, the man's still flying, and I guess that's why he's such a legend. When Bob Hoover tested America's first jets, flight simulators were unheard of devices. The pilot did it all. With a flight card in one hand and an angel on his shoulder, Bob Hoover took the propellers off of aviation and blasted America into the jet age. He's logged thousands of hours and survived more airplane crashes through testing than any other living pilot. And I guess that's why he's so darn good. Bob Hoover's story is that of a real living legend.
The story you are about to hear is true. It is a story of a man who, by all accounts, never should have lived a day past his 30th birthday. He was born on January 24th, 1922, in Nashville, Tennessee. He would grow up to become a performer without equal, a man whose talent was so great that his name would be put forward as a hallmark by which other men of his league are still measured to this day. He never played a lick of music, doesn't care too much for driving a car, but friend, no one can fly the wings off an airplane like Bob Hoover. Robert A. Bob Hoover is America's premier air show demonstration pilot. He puts on a variety of performances in his Shrike Commander, a Saberliner jet, and occasionally the old Yeller P-51 Mustang and his T-28. As we watch him perform those slow, graceful maneuvers, many people have no conception of this man's extraordinary aviation career. He's been called the Great One, a legend in his own time. When pilots compare pilots, it's the name of Bob Hoover that is the measure of comparison. Chuck Yeager says he's the best stick and rudder man in the business. He's survived more aircraft accidents through testing than probably any living human being. So who is this man that so many revere? I wanted to know, and that's where this incredible true story begins. At the age of 16, Bob Hoover soloed his first flight using the $2 he earned working all day at a grocery store to pay for the flying lessons. His first airplane flights made him desperately ill, but he fought back a queasy stomach and overcame the discomfort through continued practice. He joined the Tennessee Air National Guard at 18. Didn't expect to fly till he reached 21, but that all changed on December 7th, 1941.
Wave after wave of enemy planes bombed American aircraft and units of the Pacific Fleet in a treacherous attack which achieved perfect tactical surprise.
Other Japs went after U.S. fighters on auxiliary fields. In spite of the terrific pounding, our pilots and mechanics were able to get 4 P-40s and 2 P-36s in the air within the first 30 minutes and offer some resistance. The United States had suffered a crushing blow, and the nation was at war.
America at war needed every able-bodied pilot. So Bob Hoover quickly found himself in the Army Air Corps, flight testing reassembled aircraft in Africa.
Once I started flying all of these many different airplanes, everything that you can think of in the war, they were assembling Spitfires, P-38s, P-40s, P-39s, the first P-51s. All of these airplanes were brought over in crates and then put together, and myself and another pilot did all the flying on those airplanes. And of course, we built up a wealth of experience in a very short time. In addition, we got to fly most of the bombers that were in for repair, engine changes, or whatever kind of maintenance was necessary. The people didn't know the airplanes that were putting them together, and things would be left out, all kinds of shortcomings. And during that time period, I had more accidents than I care to remember. Nothing serious, but enough to where the airplanes were damaged. You know, the gears wouldn't come down, or engine failures, or fires. But from each one, I gained an experience, and it's all cataloged in your memory bank, so it comes out later when you might need it.
We found this article from the Nashville Tennessean, which states that Bob Hoover had 17 crashes during testing of aircraft in North Africa due to structural defects. But more than anything else, Bob Hoover wanted to be a combat pilot.
Bob Hoover was shot down over the Mediterranean Sea. Floating for hours with shrapnel in his legs, a German U-boat picked him up, sending him to a POW camp for the remainder of the war. After the war, Bob's expertise as a test pilot was so well known, he was assigned to Wright Field to flight test captured enemy aircraft, including the German Heinkel 162, a jet made out of plywood.
It was 1945, and Bob Hoover was one of the Army Air Corps' top test pilots. They moved him to a large lake bed in the California desert called Muroc. Later, this would come to be known as Edwards Air Force Base, where rocket sleds and astronauts were mixing it up with all sorts of experimental aircraft. But before Bob left Wright-Patterson, he had a chance meeting in the sky with this gentleman.
The first time I ever met Bob was when I used to set up there above Wright Field at about 15, 20,000 feet and wait for somebody to take off and then jump them as they climbed out, and then get in the dogfight. And the test pilots wouldn't fight. They kind of chicken. And I remember, I think it was a P-38 took off, taxied out and took off, and I came down, and man, about the time I got within 3,000 yards of that thing, it began to bend around and look at me. I went by and man reversed, and we scissored around and got in a luftberry and canopy to canopy and wide open and all the way down, and said, Jesus Christ, man, that guy about to turn me every way but loose. And we fooled around, and finally just, neither one of us was doing any good, and we finally broke it off and came back and landed. And I knew it was one of the fighter test section's airplanes, and he came in and parked, and I parked 51, and he parked in the next row, and the old lanky lieutenant got out, and I went over and I said, man, you're really shit hot in that airplane. That's the first time I ever see old Hoover. I remember his name, and we got to be good friends.
We went to Edwards Air Force Base and the site of Pancho Barnes Bar. there to reminisce about the good old days and their flying experiences.
I can remember buzzing this place in every airplane that we flew in. Remember when we checked out in the N9M at Flying Wing and you got to fly it first and going down the runway with both feet on the rudders.
I remember only too well.
Yeah, and then you came over here and buzzed ponchos, and I think you did the first roll ever done with a Flying Wing.
Yeah, I remember that.
And
they swapped lies and told bad stories. And then settling down in front of the old hearth, they talked about the dangers of flight test.
Yeah, we burned a few airplanes up out here, X-1s and B-50s, motherships, blew them up right on the ground. But that was the only way we had of getting above Mach 1, and that's, you know, it's part of the acceptable risk. Christ, it's like you killed a lot of people. That's the way you got data, though.
That's a point that in recent times, people don't stop to realize that in our time and before us, we lost test pilots all the time. I started out with a company, I had 6 test pilots, and the first thing you know, there are only 2 of us of that original 6. Keep bringing people in and they get killed, and you keep bringing more. And here at Edwards Air Force Base, as you drive around, Chuck and I have more every street named after a friend of ours that we've known over the years.
You got to be good, you know. And
to stay alive.
Is to stay alive, and that's the object. The more experience you get, the better you get.
Now, while the Air Force had accepted the F-86s, the Navy was still testing their XFJ-1 prototype airplanes aboard the USS Boxer to see if the planes could meet specifications. Landing high-speed jets on a pitching carrier deck was a new ballgame back then. The test pilots had to come in hot and set the gear down hard to verify that those new planes could withstand the vicious pounding that naval operations had to offer. As you're about to see, this was a high-risk business for the test pilot. Miraculously, some of these men, such as Bob Hoover and a handful of other courageous test pilots, lived through the experience. North American Aviation totally redesigned the XFJ-1 to a new swept-wing design, the XFJ-2. Seen here on her maiden flight with dark navy colors, she had none other than Bob Hoover at the controls.
Bob Hoover, the story of a real living legend. Well, you never know what's going to happen when pilots get together in an air race, and here's a good example. As we pick up in the race, Rick Brickard in Dreadnought and Skip Holm in Stiletto are battling it out for the gold.
And you heard those famous words, gentlemen, you have a race, as the mighty Unlimiteds come down the stretch.
We're in Stiletto with Skip Holm as he fires the afterburners. Now watch on the left side as the other planes disappear. Down the chute and across the desert at over 450 miles per hour. This is the Unlimited Gold.
Boy, is that Stiletto, it looked like it was as he went past the 2 lead airplanes already.
Back on the course with Skip Holm as we go screaming into that number 4 pylon.
I don't think that Rick Brickard is going to let Skip Holm get away from that as he can help it. As they come on around, it's that Lockheed test pilot at number 84, Stiletto. And right in back of him, the big Hawker Sea Fury as they go by.
Skip Holm in Stiletto has got it redlined as he comes off pylon 6, but he has competition.
It is Rick Brickard as he comes in the overhaul Stiletto there in the background as he comes up and underneath. And no, Skip Holm says no, don't take it away from me.
Skip Holm brings Stiletto down the home stretch, his left hand to the firewall, but high overhead, Bob Hoover sees trouble.
Skip, you're drawing smoke. And your Stiletto, you're smoking, white smoke. As they're almost wingtip to wingtip now. With the Sea Fury, now, Dreadnought goes out in front, and it definitely is smoking bad now. That's the Stiletto. Looks like he has got a fire going. Skip, you got all over that thing. And as Brickard comes in for the kill, it's Holm as he shoves that throttle forward.
84 is the Mayday, 84 is the Mayday.
Skip Holm has called a mayday, but Bob Hoover is dropping down to check out Stiletto.
That's an awful lot of oil on your right-hand side. There's no smoke at this time and no indication of fire.
Now, as Skip sets up for an emergency landing on 2-6, oil from his badly damaged engine hits the windshield. Now, let's cut to the ground camera as Skip shoots final over the field. When the race concluded, Rick Brickert from Sandy, Utah took a well-deserved wave of that old checkered flag to take the gold. Followed in second by Lloyd Hamilton in Furious. And Bill DeStefani in the Skoal Bandit clocked in the number 3 position.
I think really the highlight is when I climb out on the wires and hang on to the wires and fly beside the airplane while Jimmy does a loop and a roll.
All the way around, up and over. Look at Johnny, he is having himself a real good time.
You're watching the dynamic duo of John Kazian and Jim Franklin in a sleek black airplane they call the Waco Mystery Ship.
With Jimmy Franklin at the controls, he is such a superb pilot. I mean, no matter where I walk on the airplane, I know he's working like mad in there correcting, because I'm destroying all the good lift characteristics of this beautiful aircraft that he built. And but with Jimmy at the controls, I never know how much work he's going through because he's always got a grin on his face and he's always doing exactly what has to be done.
And watch this. You want to go for a ride? There you go, all the way around. There's one snap roll, 2, into the tailspin, all the way around. He did 3.5 turns across the sky right there. Johnny Kazian right up on top of that wing, his arms stretched out. Straight up into the sky now. Watch this. They get right up there, still going straight up, still straight up. How about a tail slide with a man on top of the wing, coming straight back down. Oh, all the way around there. Okay, Johnny Casey, keep your eyes on his hands up there, and all of a sudden you'll see him either wave or give that charge signal again.
Elliott steaming in from the right, pulling back on the stick, coming down out of the 3, the 4-turn spin is Jim Franklin. Remember that on that wing, going through those spins, is Johnny Kazian, Hollywood stuntman, diving down now, looking for about 160, 170, 180. At 185, they pull back on the stick. Johnny, the Cinema 600, and Jimmy Franklin in the cockpit go through those high G-loads. As Elliott Cross now maneuvers out just to the left of the start-finish pylon. Going through the torque roll, high and to the left is Jimmy Franklin. Riding through that torque roll, breathing all that smoke. Right about in here is Johnny Kazian. Now, as they get lower, you will be able to pick out his figure on that wing.
We are the only true wing walking act in the world. I mean, no ropes, no wires, no cables. And Jimmy Franklin, the aircraft that he designed and put together, it does Lomshavaks with me on the wing. Torque rolls, tail slides with me on the wing.
Now, he had just finished this interview when from out of nowhere she came like a shot. By the time I framed up, it was halfway out of sight and into the next county. Some of us on the ground, including me, weren't exactly sure what flew by, but if noise counts for anything, it was a real bad airplane. Then it turned and came back around for a second and a parting pass. Now there was no mistaking her lines. She was a black beauty out of Beale Air Force Base. One of America's truly top-secret aircraft, inbound from a classified mission somewhere over the Pacific. Listen now as the pilot kicks in the afterburners on one of America's top fuel dragsters of the sky. This is the SR-71. Goodbye, Gorbachev.
The world has turned upside down for this aviator, but that isn't so bad when your name is Craig Hosking. Craig not only performs superb aerobatics, he also lands his pits upside down. Watch this. here come the Thunderbirds. From Nellis Air Force Base down Las Vegas way comes the pride of the United States Air Force. Let's watch their powerful performance.
Once more, from a different angle, the two planes split. Take a look at the fire in the afterburner. The fabulous Thunderbirds making the sound of freedom.
A giant C-5A flew in over the field. This plane is so huge that at 150 miles per hour, it almost seems to hover. Listen to the whine of those engines. Now, the man who flies this plane is a favorite no matter where he goes. In my book, he's the foremost colonel in the Confederate Air Force. This is the Chief Executive Officer of the Thunder and Lightning Gang, Mr. Lefty Gardner.
Well, that's our program, and I hope you enjoyed it. Each year, SKYFIRE produces new and exciting programs on aviation and other interesting subjects. If you attend air shows, look for us. Come on over and introduce yourself and say hello. We'll be looking for you. I'm Jim Mitchell. Thank you for watching.